You've probably spent years saying, next month I'll change, next year I'll start, soon I'll get serious. But here's the truth no one likes to admit. 1 year of real commitment can outperform 5 years of pretending. This video is not here to comfort you, it's here to wake you up. Because if you give yourself 1 year, one painfully honest, disciplined, uncomfortable year, you can rebuild everything you thought was lost. So let's talk about what happens when you stop wasting years and do this for just one. Number one, radical accountability. Radical accountability is not a motivational slogan or a temporary mindset shift. It is a complete internal restructuring of how you see yourself, your choices, and the outcomes you keep creating. Most people spend years blaming circumstances, people, trauma, timing, and even luck for the gap between who they are and who they want to be. Radical accountability requires you to remove every buffer, every excuse, every soft pillow you've built to protect your ego from the truth. It is the uncomfortable realization that your life today is not an accident. It is a direct reflection of your decisions, your patterns, your reactions, and your unwillingness to confront the things you avoid. This level of honesty is painful. It destroys the versions of you that needed blame to feel safe. But it also frees you, because once you accept complete responsibility for where you are, you finally gain the power to change where you're going. Radical accountability forces you to examine the subtle habits that have quietly sabotaged your progress for years. It makes you look closely at the moments you scroll when you should work, the times you avoid the conversation you know you need to have, the times you choose comfort over clarity, the times you wait for motivation instead of creating momentum, and the times you let emotions dictate your decisions instead of discipline. It pushes you to admit that the life you want requires behaviors you haven't been willing to adopt yet, and the life you fear requires behaviors you haven't been willing to stop. This is not self-blame. It is self-ownership. It is the adult version of growth, the one most people never reach because it demands more courage than complaining. Radical accountability means you stop outsourcing your progress to external validation and start building your identity through action. You no longer say, I didn't have time. You say, I didn't prioritize it. You don't say, I'll try tomorrow. You say, I chose not to do it today. You don't say, people held me back. You examine why you surrounded yourself with people who encourage your stagnation. This level of clarity is ruthless, but it is also liberating because it removes the illusion that you are powerless. Once you realize that the smallest disciplined action can shift the trajectory of your life, you stop waiting for the right moment and start creating the right behavior. Radical accountability is the doorway to becoming a person you respect, because respect grows from consistency, not wishful thinking. Every honest admission becomes a starting point for change, and every action taken without excuses becomes proof that you are building a new identity from the inside out. Number two, environment reset. An environment reset is not simply about rearranging your room or deleting a few apps from your phone. It is a complete overhaul of the physical, emotional, and psychological spaces that shape your behavior every single day. Most people underestimate how deeply their environment controls them. The places you spend time in, the noise you tolerate, the routines you fall into, the people you surround yourself with, these things create invisible boundaries that determine what you believe is possible. If your environment is built on distraction, chaos, and low standards, then discipline becomes a constant uphill battle. You begin to normalize procrastination, disorder, and comfort because everything around you reinforces it. An environment reset requires you to step back and ask, does this place support the person I want to become, or the person I've been trying to escape? That question alone exposes how much of your identity has been shaped by surroundings that no longer match your goals. Resetting your environment means you intentionally remove the things that drain your energy and replace them with things that elevate your standards. It forces you to examine your home, your workspace, your digital world, and even your social circle through a brutally honest lens. Your room reflects your clarity. Your desk reflects your productivity. Your phone reflects your priorities. Your friend group reflects your future. Every mess you avoid cleaning, every app you scroll through at midnight, every person who keeps you stuck in old patterns. These are environmental triggers that shape your behavior more than motivation ever will. When you reset your environment, you aren't just cleaning, you are dismantling a system that was quietly pulling you backward. You are creating physical cues that make discipline easier and impulsive choices harder. You are removing the friction that fights your growth and building spaces that make action feel natural instead of forced. This reset extends beyond the physical world. Your emotional and psychological environment must change as well. That means setting boundaries with people who drain you, limiting access to conversations that destabilize you, and distancing yourself from environments that reward distraction or negativity. Change becomes dramatically easier when your surroundings stop opposing you. You begin to realize that willpower is unreliable when your environment is designed for failure, but it becomes incredibly powerful when your environment supports discipline. A reset is not about perfection. It is about alignment. It is about placing yourself in spaces that reflect your potential instead of your past, and choosing environments that pull you forward even on the days when your mind tries to pull you back. Number 3, consistency over intensity. Consistency over intensity is the discipline most people avoid because it lacks the excitement, drama, and instant gratification that big, explosive efforts provide. Intensity feels powerful in the moment. You wake up one day, decide you're tired of your own excuses, and pour everything you have into a single burst of motivation. But that intensity fades. It burns bright, then disappears, leaving you right where you started. Consistency, on the other hand, is quiet, it's repetitive, it's unglamorous. It's doing the same small thing day after day, long after the mood has disappeared. And that's what makes it so transformative, because the human brain doesn't rewire through occasional effort. It changes through repeated patterns. Consistency builds habits, habits build identity, and identity shapes your entire life. When you choose consistency over intensity, you stop relying on emotional waves and start building a foundation that cannot be shaken by stress, doubt, or temporary setbacks. Most people overestimate what intensity can achieve and underestimate what consistency can create. They plan massive routines, extreme schedules, and unrealistic goals because these things make them feel productive before they've done anything. But the truth is that small, steady actions done daily achieve more in 1 year than 100 intense attempts that collapse under their own weight. Consistency forces you to work even when you're not inspired, which is exactly why it works. It eliminates the mental negotiation that keeps you stuck in cycles of starting strong and quitting quietly. When you show up consistently, even in small ways, you train your mind to follow your decisions rather than your emotions. That shift alone is life-changing because every meaningful transformation requires stability long before it produces visible results. Consistency is not about speed, it's about direction. It's not about doing more, it's about doing something every single day that aligns with who you want to be. Choosing consistency over intensity also teaches you patience, humility, and self-respect. You learn to stop chasing perfection and start valuing progress. You begin to understand that the person who shows up daily, even imperfectly, is far more powerful than the person who shows up dramatically and then disappears for weeks. Consistency builds trust in yourself, and that trust becomes a source of confidence that no external validation can match. It becomes easier to wake up early, to focus, to follow through, because you're no longer depending on motivation to carry you. You've built a rhythm, a routine, a standard, and once consistency becomes part of your identity, discipline feels natural, momentum becomes automatic, and progress becomes inevitable. Number 4, self-respect through action. Self-respect through action is not a concept you think about. It's a way of living that you earn through the choices you make every single day. Most people search for confidence in their thoughts, waiting for the right mindset, the right moment, or the right emotional state before they act. But real self-respect never comes from intention alone. It comes from the evidence you build through behavior. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, every time you honor a promise you made to yourself, every time you push through resistance instead of surrendering to it, you reinforce a deeper belief that you are someone who can be trusted. That trust becomes the foundation of your identity. It doesn't make you feel invincible, but it makes you feel anchored, grounded in the knowledge that when you say you will do something, you will follow through, regardless of how you feel in the moment. This internal consistency becomes a shield against self-doubt because you're no longer relying on moods for direction. You've trained your actions to lead your emotions rather than the other way around. Most people unintentionally destroy their self-respect through repeated patterns of hesitation, avoidance, and broken commitments. They minimize the damage, telling themselves it's just one more day, just one more skipped step, just one more excuse. But each of these small decisions slowly rewires the brain to see promises as optional and discipline as negotiable. The result is a fragile sense of self, a version of yourself you can't trust, a voice you don't take seriously, a mind that doubts its own strength because the actions never match the intentions. You start shrinking your potential to match your behavior instead of elevating your behavior to match your potential. This is why self respect feels so distant for so many people. It's not that they lack the desire to change, it's that they've accumulated too much evidence that they don't follow through. And until that cycle is broken through action, no amount of motivation or positive thinking can restore the confidence that was lost. Self respect through action is built the same way a muscle is built through repetition, discomfort, strain, and consistency. It requires you to take small steps, even when they feel insignificant, because those steps compound into identity. It demands that you hold yourself to a standard, even when no one else is watching, because self respect is private long before it becomes visible. It pushes you to create a life where your behavior aligns with your values, where you stop negotiating with your own excuses, and where you choose actions that reflect the future you want rather than the past you're trying to outrun. When your actions begin to mirror your highest intentions, you naturally stop settling, stop doubting, and stop tolerating what diminishes you because your daily behavior reinforces a version of yourself that is worthy of trust, worthy of discipline, and worthy of the life you are trying to build. Number 5, discomfort as a lifestyle. Discomfort as a lifestyle is not about chasing pain or glorifying struggle. It is about deliberately choosing the paths that challenge you because those are the only paths that create real growth. Most people spend their lives avoiding discomfort, believing that comfort is the reward for surviving life rather than the trap that keeps them stuck. When everything around you is designed to be easy, entertaining, and instantly satisfying, discomfort begins to feel like a threat instead of a teacher. But the truth is that the life you want exists on the other side of discomfort, and the person you want to become can only be built through experiences that stretch you, unsettle you, and force you to confront the limits you've placed on yourself. Discomfort is where identity is forged. Discomfort is where discipline is strengthened. Discomfort is where clarity is discovered, because the things you avoid are often the exact things that shape your future the most. When you adopt discomfort as a lifestyle, you stop running from the difficult conversations, the hard decisions, the unfamiliar routines, and the vulnerable moments that demand courage. You start recognizing that every area where you feel resistance is also an area where you have the potential to transform. You wake up early when you don't want to, not because it feels good, but because it trains your mind to follow commitment instead of cravings. You speak the truth even when your voice shakes, because honesty clears the mental fog that comfort protects. You take the first step toward a goal, even when you feel unprepared, because waiting for comfort is just another form of delay. Discomfort becomes your compass, not because it feels pleasant, but because it reveals exactly where your growth is hiding. And once you begin choosing discomfort consciously, you realize that fear loses its power when it becomes familiar, and discipline becomes natural when struggle becomes normal. Discomfort as a lifestyle also means accepting that your mind will resist the very things that are good for you. It will beg for shortcuts, distractions, and escape routes because discomfort threatens the identity you have outgrown but still cling to. This is why choosing discomfort is an act of rebellion against your own limitations. It teaches you to do what is necessary instead of what is easy, to stay grounded when everything in you wants to flee, and to build a level of mental toughness that comfort could never provide. Over time, discomfort stops feeling like an obstacle and starts feeling like alignment. It becomes the place where you learn discipline, confidence, resilience, and self-respect. It becomes the environment where your potential is no longer theoretical, but lived through the choices you make every day. It becomes the path that separates the person you were from the person you are relentlessly becoming. Number 6, identity upgrade. An identity upgrade is not about pretending to be someone new. It is about becoming the version of yourself you were always capable of being, but never fully committed to. Most people try to change their lives through goals, habits, and routines, but they forget that none of these shifts are sustainable if the identity beneath them stays the same. You cannot create a disciplined life with an undisciplined identity. You cannot build confidence with a self-image built on doubt. You cannot expect long-term transformation while holding on to beliefs that were shaped by old failures, old environments, and old versions of you. An identity upgrade requires you to challenge the narratives you've been repeating for years, stories about your limits, your worth, your abilities, your future, and replace them with a new internal framework. This process is uncomfortable because it forces you to confront the fact that your identity has been shaped more by your past experiences than by your present potential, and changing that requires deep internal honesty. Upgrading your identity means recognizing that every action you take is a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. When you choose responsibility over avoidance, you cast a vote for a stronger identity. When you choose discipline over distraction, you cast a vote for a more capable identity. When you choose clarity over chaos, you cast a vote for a more grounded identity. These choices accumulate, and over time, they shift your internal blueprint. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. You stop seeing yourself as someone who reacts and start seeing yourself as someone who creates. You stop seeing yourself as someone defined by circumstances and start seeing yourself as someone defined by intention. Identity is not something you're born with, it's something you build through repeated alignment with the person you want to be. An identity upgrade also requires you to step away from the environments, people, and habits that reinforce your old self. If your identity is shaped by the same conversations, the same routines, and the same emotional patterns, then your life will stay exactly where it is. To upgrade your identity, you need to surround yourself with standards that demand growth. You need to expose yourself to challenges that stretch your self-image. You need to adopt behaviors that feel foreign at first, but necessary later. As you do this, something subtle but powerful happens. Your mind begins to adjust to the new version of you before the world even notices. You begin carrying yourself differently, thinking differently, choosing differently, because you're no longer operating from the identity built by your past. You're operating from the identity being built by your future. You don't need more years to change your life. You just need the courage to start shaping the next one with intention. Everything you want becomes possible the moment you stop waiting and start acting like the person you're meant to become. This is your year to rise, rebuild, and rewrite the story you're tired of repeating. Your future is watching. Make it proud.